Haha, yes, it is that time for teams that are not in the playoffs to get into arguments about semantics, to get into arguments about which player is better, which player will be better, and which player compared to a bunch of other ones is the worst of them all. Yeah, we're going over a ranking today. Because earlier this week, this was published onto The Athletic, and I wanted to leave a link in the description to this very interesting article that is headlined by a beautiful image of Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini, and Austin Matthews. Look at that graphic. So beautiful. The title of the article, as written by Corey Pronman, is this: How does Macklin Celebrini compare to recent first overall picks? Scouts and executives weigh in. Now, if you wanted to see my own take on this, because we did make a video about this very same topic a few weeks ago, that video is indeed available here. We talk about how Macklin Celebrini is indeed underrated, reputation-wise, compared to what we had seen out of previous first overall picks. But with this Athletic article in mind, I wanted to use a list published within the article to bring us a topic for today's video. And there is a TVA Sports article that we're going to go out there and read that uses this Athletic list to give its narrative. So I'll leave a link in the description to The Athletic. I'll also leave a link in the description to TVA, because this article published yesterday at noon talks about how Montreal Canadiens first overall pick Juraj Slafkovsky is at the bottom of The Athletic's rankings. Juraj Slafkovsky is considered by The Athletic to be the worst first overall pick in recent history, despite his very promising second season in the NHL. The Athletic's prospect expert Corey Pronman surveyed NHL scouts and executives to rank the top draft class since 2015. The exercise mainly served to compare Macklin Celebrini to other prodigies of recent years. The Canadian forward, expected to be the first overall pick in 2024 Las Vegas, was assigned the fifth pick. Now, this is the list right here. If you wanted to talk about the top first overall picks of recent years, pretty much the last 10 years if you wanted to include 2024, Connor McDavid is number 1 from 2015. Connor Bedard is number 2 from 2023. Austin Matthews is number 3 from 2016. Jack Hughes is 4th overall from 2019. Macklin Celebrini is 5th overall from 2024. Rasmus Dahlin is the 6th overall pick from 2018, and then you have the bottom 4. Owen Power from 2021 at 7, Nico Hischier from 2017 at 8, Alexis Lafreniere from 2020 at 9, and Juraj Slafkovsky from 2022 at 10. Now, of course, when you see an article talking about how, The Athletic has Slafkovsky ranked last, it does sound a little bit dangerous, but when you think about the players that Slafkovsky is being compared to, there is a mindset that you could adjust to that may explain why Slafkovsky could be ranked last, especially if people that are viewing this guy and asked to rank the list accordingly haven't really been paying too much attention, because Slafkovsky really only turned around his reputation amongst Canadiens fans, let's just say within the past year and a bit. If you really wanted to get specific, I'd say maybe 5-6 months ago, people would not have had Slafkovsky anywhere near the top of a list like this. But realistically, if you had asked me for my personal opinion, ranking the first overall picks, okay. McDavid, Bedard, Matthews, 1, 2, 3, you cannot go wrong with that. They're better, they're superior, they're going to be legends, it's inevitable. Honestly, you could twist my arm and say that Macklin Celebrini could be over Jack Hughes, but Rasmus Dahlin being the first defenseman here after that group of 5 forwards, that makes a lot of sense to me. I personally would probably have it in the same way. Owen Power being at number 7 above Hischier, Slafkovsky, and Lafreniere is kind of interesting to me. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that, but when it comes to the bottom 3 guys, Nico Hischier, Alexis Lafreniere, and Juraj Slafkovsky, obviously, this list isn't saying, they're bad players. No, they just happen to be last on a list that includes names like McDavid, Matthews, and a whole bunch of other first overall picks. But when it comes down to it, these guys are pretty good. It's just, who would you rank to go above others? That's the question here. Now, I know a good chunk of my fan base is Montreal Canadiens based, so let's go out there and use the Elite Prospects Compare tool to take Juraj Slafkovsky and compare him to both Alexis Lafreniere and Nico Hischier, because that definitely will open the door to some very intriguing conversations here. So the easiest thing to think about first is Alexis Lafreniere, because they're both wingers. That is a lot more stable, I would feel, than comparing him to Hischier, who was a center. But Juraj Slafkovsky, in his 19-year-old NHL season, had 50 points in 82 games played. Alexis Lafreniere scored 21 points in 56 games played. Now, interesting to note, sure, the point-per-game number, it's slightly in Slafkovsky's favor. Does that bode better for the Montreal Canadiens forward? I think it should, and here's why. Alexis Lafreniere actually took quite a bit of time to break out into the NHL and establish himself as a legitimately good scoring threat. The year after, at Alexis Lafreniere's 20-year-old season, he put up 31 points in 79 games played. That is already fewer points than Slafkovsky had. Even Alexis Lafreniere's 21-year-old year, 39 points in 81 games, again, an inferior season to Slafkovsky. This year is where Lafreniere really broke out. 57 points, 82 games played, but he did so at 22. Now, you could debate that a lot of this has to do with deployment. He's not getting power play time, just like Juraj Slafkovsky is. He was up and down in the lineup, yada yada yada. Slafkovsky was pretty much thrusted onto the first line from, let's say, the halfway mark-ish of the season, and he's been fine. So there is a definite argument to make that says that as of right now, Slafkovsky could be seen as a better first overall pick than Lafreniere. Maybe Lafreniere should be last, who really knows? Then if you go over to Nico Hischier, things get even more interesting. Because Hischier isn't really a player you could just say, oh, point production, that's how you'll compare. Because point production doesn't really matter here. Nico Hischier is a two-way center who is a captain of a team that absolutely loves him, and he has started to pretty much consistently get around a point per game per season. Now, if you wanted to talk about points, Nico's got Slafkovsky beat early on because at 18 years old, Nico Hischier had a 52-point season. Slafkovsky was on pace for about 20 points. Nico Hischier's second season was also better point-per-game-wise than Slafkovsky, but the years after were a bit rough. Of course, the seasons were shut down, they were a little bit slower, and Nico wasn't playing all the games too. But around 22, 23, 24, this is when Nico started to stabilize. He's the captain of the Devils, 60 points in 70 games at 22 years old, 80 points last year in 81 games played, 67 points in 71 games played this year, all while being a defensively minded, two-way responsible, shutdown center. That's a very valuable player. But is it better, quote-unquote, than Slafkovsky? You see, if Juraj becomes the next Mikko Rantanen, like a lot of people in Habs land are tossing out there, if he gets 100 points in a season one day, which I don't want to say is impossible, but, you know, if I'd bet on it, I'd say maybe it's a 1 in 4 chance of happening. I don't really know, maybe 1 in 5. If Slafkovsky gets a 100-point season one day and we start seeing him in that light of Rantanen, is that a quote-unquote higher-ranked player than what Nico Hischier is? Now, Hischier is 24, 25 years old. He'll still be getting better. I mean, there's a lot of room for him to eventually get that point production up, especially if the Devils players around him start scoring more. But for right now, I could totally understand that if you wanted to have Slafkovsky under or right around the Hischier territory, that would make sense to me. Honestly, if you had to ask my personal opinion, I'd have Lafreniere at the bottom here. Maybe have Hischier, Power, Slafkovsky in a similar tier, but maybe Power would be last. And then everybody else on top, I mean, McDavid, Bedard, Matthews, Hughes, Celebrini, they could all stay up there. It's totally fine. Rasmus Dahlin being above all these other guys too, that would make sense to me. I mean, he's so good. But at the end of the day, this is the Athletics ranking for first overall picks from 2015 up until now. McDavid, Bedard, Matthews, Hughes, Celebrini, Dahlin, Power, Hischier, Lafreniere, and Slafkovsky. What names would you change around if you had to start a franchise from scratch and you were only given the bottom 7 guys? Power, Hischier, Lafreniere, Slaf. If you were given a pick and you were told, hey, this is whom you're going to build your franchise around, who would you take? Slaf, Laf, Power, or Hischier? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.